Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Compliments of the season. How is everyone doing and how is the Christmas preparations going? I hope it's going fine. For anyone who is feeling sad, lonely, discouraged during this celebratory time, I just want to encourage you that this is only for a moment. This is just one Christmas out of so many Christmas. If you're feeling sad because you're away from family or due to financial constraint, whatever the case may be, I just want to encourage you that this is just one Christmas out of so many Christmas you will get to enjoy. But anyways, let's move into today's topic. Today I want us to talk about a fashion item that has sparked debates, defined silhouettes, and made major comebacks through the centuries: the corset. It went from it being a symbol of femininity and elegance to it being a subject of controversy and empowerment. And the corset has had quite the journey, honestly. So let's dive right into the fascinating story of how this garment went from it being a hidden underwear to a modern fashion statement. But first, I would love for us to begin with the origins of corset. Now, corset has been around in some form of centuries for a long time, as I mentioned earlier, and the earliest versions date back to Asian civilizations like Crete. It's an island in Greece where women wore tight-fitting garments to emphasize their waist. Now, this corset, as we know it, gained popularity during the 16th centuries in Europe, particularly in France. And just an observation from my own side, all the fashion history we've been doing so far, mostly, if you guys notice, it mostly starts or get popularized in the Western countries. This is one of the few that actually went popular in Europe and particularly in France. Anyways, these corsets, that's the early corset that started in Greece, were rigid and they were made of materials like whalebone, and they were used to shape the torso into a cone-like silhouette. Imagine an ice cream cone, or I'm sure all of you know what a silhouette looks like. And for the aristocracy, that is the elite, wearing the corset wasn't just about fashion for them. It was more about displaying their status and their control. And for them, the tighter the corset, the more refined you appeared. Now we'll move to the 18th and 19th centuries, where the corset went from it being of elegance to restriction. In the 18th century, corset became a staple in women's fashion. It moved to emphasizing tiny waist and full skirts, and this wasn't just about aesthetics. They also believed that the corsets would improve posture and represent discipline. But as time went on, of course, corset became more restrictive, with tighter laces and exaggerated silhouettes, which leads us to the Victorian era. And guys, this is personally speaking, I feel like we're moving back to that era. But anyways, let's move to the Victorian era. During the 19th century, the hourglass figure became the ultimate symbol of beauty, and corsets, of course, were taken to the extremes. Some women even went as far as practicing tight lacing, which is pulling your corset string so tight that your waist will be snatched or reduced to as little as 16 inches. But of course, this wasn't without consequences. Doctors started warning about corset-related health issues like difficulty breathing and organ displacement. And as serious as these complaints or warnings were, the corset remained a key part in fashion. Now we move to the decline of corset. But bear in mind, guys, I told you corset have been on and on, like making major comebacks. So they go out of fashion and they come back. So by the early 20th century, corset began to lose its grip, literally, because women started entering the workforce. Women started working more and they started advocating for more freedom. So because of this, women were more about practicality instead of fashion. Basically, practicality became more important than fashion, and we had designers like Paul Porret who revolutionized women's clothing by introducing loose flowing garments that eliminated the need for corset. So it was designers like Paul Porret that saved us from corset at some point, so I would say deliver us from corset. But anyways, by the 1920s, the corset was largely replaced by girdles and bras. I'm sure some of you in my generation must have come across girdles at some point. And now reading about this thing, I remembered girdles at some point. And during that time, it was just so funny to now think that that is like an inspiration of what we're seeing as the in thing today. It's just crazy how fashion is just we reinventing the past and adding, some touch of modernization to it, if I may. But anyways, by the 1920s, that is when corsets were replaced by girdles and bras, the body type shifted to a more androgynous figure. And this androgynous means neither male or neither female, like unisex, more of unisex. So the corset became a thing of the past, but it wasn't gone for good, like I said. And then the corset made a comeback again in fashion towards the late 20th century. So by the early 20th century, there was a decline. But towards the late 20th century, the corset came back again. But this time, it made a dramatic comeback. I feel like we were talking, like, this story feels like I'm talking about 2024, but this is the 20th century. It made a dramatic comeback, but this time it was different. So instead of it being a restrictive underwear, corset became bold, empowering outwear. And then we had designers like Vivienne Westwood and Jean-Paul Gaultier who reimagined the corset as a statement piece, which in their own way, they were just celebrating curves and individuality. And also, I don't know if anyone of you remembers Madonna's cone corset, which was popular in the 90s. That's a perfect example of how corset evolved into a symbol of empowerment rather than restriction. And this Madonna's cone corset was also made by Jean-Paul Gaultier. He was the one who designed it, and I've seen that on Beyonce and Kim Kardashian as well. I'm going to leave a picture for you guys to understand what I'm talking about. But yeah, that is also a corset as well. And then for today, corset has become more of function and fashion. And today, corset, you can find corset everywhere, from highway fashion runways to everyday streetwear. Like, modern corset comes in all styles, wedding dresses, traditional attire, like you can find even in the simplest outfits. We've now incorporated corsets in so many aspects of women's fashion. And some of them today, some materials, instead of the whalebone, which were rigid before, these days we have soft and stretchy material, while others are still structured and dramatic. But corset is no longer about forcing the body into a certain shape. Instead, they are more about self-expression. And we have celebrities like Zendaya and Bella Hadid who rock corset-inspired tops, whether they are paired with jeans, skirts, dresses. Corset has become a versatile piece that tends to combine fashion, history, and modern style, like I said earlier on. But yeah, let's talk about what corset symbolizes. Now, what does corset symbolize today? For some, it's still a nod to vintage glamour and elegance. For others, it's about reclaiming power over their own bodies. And for others, it's just about trend. But the corset history is a reminder to all of us that fashion evolves and so does its meanings. What was once seen as restrictive is now celebrated as empowering. And just as I mentioned earlier, the place we're going to in 2024, from it being restrictive to it being empowering, I feel like we're moving towards the restrictive part again. And before we know it, the corset will go into extension again. But anyways, guys, what do you think about the story of the corset, from the controversial beginnings to its modern day reintervention? Because personally speaking, from all I've seen, especially in the African side, I know I'm always saying Africa. I promise you I have nothing against Africa, but it's just more prevalent in Africa once more, where the corset has now become something that I don't even know how to explain it. Like, literally everyone wants to wear corset. You can't find, even down to our traditional attires, like wedding attires, it doesn't matter, for any occasion. Now you hardly find a style that doesn't have corset, and it's like, when are we going to free ourselves from the shackles of this corset? Because, as I said, doctors at some point say warning for corset health related issues like organ displacement and difficulty breathing. And I'm a firm believer that fashion doesn't have to be restrictive. Just because it's fashion doesn't mean you have to kill yourself or be so uncomfortable to the point that you're having difficulty breathing. Fashion to me should be all about your style, what makes you comfortable, what you're comfortable in, and how you look good. But this period, especially the corset, you see some ladies cannot even sit down properly. They are not able to sit down upright, but they just want the corset. That was why I made mention of, to some people it's just a trend, because they're just using it without really knowing what the corset is and why it has to be that restrictive. Like, if you guys watch movies from the Victorian era, or if you've come across pictures, videos, you can see how tight the corset is. Now imagine having that long for long hours every time that is what you're wearing. Like, so things like that, or certain things like that, they don't come without consequences, you know. So I just want to encourage ladies once more to please take it easy on the corset, especially when it comes to your wedding dress. It is not a must to have corset on your wedding dress. Before corset, there were lots varieties of designs, styles you could wear. So corset should not be the thing that you want to, like, it's a must for you to use. And it's something that, like I said, a lot of ladies, you will find yourself, even in the point of watching the video, seeing the picture, you're unconsciously trying to breathe on their behalf because of how restricted it is. So that's why I made the statement of, if care is not taken, very soon we're going to move into the era of corset being too restrictive, because these days that is the standard of beauty to some, not all, you know. So we really need to redefine beauty to our own standard, not what the society is saying. So if you want to use corset, and this is not me discouraging you from using corset, but use corset with the proper understanding. You don't have to restrict yourself from breathing just because you want a snatched waist, whereas you literally can't breathe. And guys, please just have mercy, take it easy on yourself. When you want to use corset, use it in, let it be reasonably tight, not too restrictive that you're finding difficulty in breathing. Anything that will make it difficult for you to breathe, you don't need that thing, trust me. But yeah, let's move into what I've been watching this week. The first on my list would be Carry On. This is a movie on Netflix, really interesting, just cool, you know. There's thrills, of course. Just give it a watch. I'm sure a lot or a number of people have watched it. If you haven't, please give it a watch. It is really interesting. And then I've been catching up with Landman, which is a series. I've been talking about it. It's really interesting. But fascinating thing about this series is, from the moment it started till this moment, guys, it's been bad news to another, you know, just different problems. There's really never so much time for joy. Don't get me wrong, it's not depressing. I'm just saying, as a whole, it's like the people in this series, they are having so many difficulties, from one difficulty to another. And the lady who I spoke about, Tommy's wife, she and her daughter, Tommy's wife and his daughter, these two duo or dynamic, they are just the perfect addition to this series. And I feel like they added them because, like I said, it's been from one issue to another. Currently, Cartel even came to them saying, okay, what happened was, like I said, it involves oil drilling. It's all about that. So they made a plan with a local community that they were drilling their oil there. And the way it works is, sometimes the cartel members steal their planes to go get their drugs or steal their trucks, but whenever they are done with what it is they are doing, they tend to return it back. So this time around, the cartel stole their plane, got the drugs, but the plane unfortunately crashed on their road. So now the cartel is coming saying they need to pay them the damages for their drugs, which is $30 million. And of course, that is not ideal in the real world, because you stole this plane, number one. Number two, you carry drugs without telling anyone, which is illegal. So many things, but now they are demanding payment for the drugs. And Tommy is the one telling them that that's not how things work. And of course, you can have an idea of how the cartel operates. So that is where we are right now. So I feel like his wife and the daughter, they're the ones who bring that positivity, that laughter to the series, and they just make it so enjoyable. You should give it a watch if you haven't. The next I've been catching up with would be Dune Prophecy. This is also a very interesting TV show. And this as well, no violence, no fights, nothing so serious, but the politics, guys, the drama. I would say it's even the recent episode, I would say there's been an act of violence, or, you know, yeah. But so far, there's been no violence, but just so many things happening at the same time. The politics is just on another level. But yeah, that's all I've been watching this week. And what I've been listening to this week, last week I made mention of Tiwa Savage's latest song and SARS featuring Ashake. And of course, they are very interesting. Personally speaking, I love them. I'm a huge fan of Tiwa Savage and of course Ashake, and both are really nice. I already added them to Victoria's playlist. If you haven't given Victoria's playlist a listen, please check it out. Perhaps you might have the same taste in music, or you might come to like mine, or even you might have some of your favorites on my list. Just give it a listen, you would enjoy it. It's public, it's titled Victoria's Playlist, and it's all about Nigerian songs. For my other playlist that is non-Nigerian song, I'm still working on it, I have just 20 songs if I'm not mistaken, but for this Victoria's playlist is over 100 songs. So give it a listen, enjoy your holidays with it. It's a playlist I curated just for you guys, what it feels like listening to music from my own point of view, if I may. But yeah, I would love for us to move on to our quote for this week. What's our quote for this week? The title of our quote for this week is "Success is Painful," and it goes, "If you truly want to succeed, you must stop listening to your feelings and push through the painful times." At first, everyone has a lot of motivation and does a lot, but then halfway through, most people give up because they no longer feel like it. Don't be one of those who act according to their desires. Be one of those who do things even when they don't feel like it. This way, you will achieve real success. If you only pay attention to your mood and feelings, you will start 100 things but finish none. However, if you persevere with one thing, and even on tough days, you will have something perfect. And that's how success is achieved. With a vision, a bit of motivation, but fundamentally, it consists of discipline and perseverance. So I just want to encourage you guys with this. Success is painful. In as much as you're losing your mind, you feel like it's not going to work out. I want to encourage you that success is painful. You're not alone. What is difficult for you is also difficult for every other person. So just hang in there, keep it going, just do your best. Even on days where you don't feel like it, strive to do the best you can. And yeah, guys, once more, I just thought this was a very fascinating story to shed some light on, because corset is something I find very fascinating. I don't believe I've ever used a corset before. And I'm also, just because sometimes I also imagine, the restrictiveness in corset, or I would say from what I've seen, is just too restrictive for me to submit myself to such discomfort. But it looks very beautiful, don't get me wrong. Like I said, it gives that defined perfect silhouette shaping. But regardless, I stand by what I say. Fashion should be about not necessarily comfort, but you should be comfortable in what you're wearing. What you're wearing should not limit the way you sit, the way you breathe, the way you carry yourself. Just at the end of the day, do what works for you. But let's try to take it easy on ourselves. And yeah, guys, let me know what you think about the story of corset. If you have any other thing to add, please feel free. Are they a timeless piece of fashion or a relic of the past? What do you think? And do you think the reinvention makes sense, seeing that corset went from it being a hidden undergarment to now becoming a modern fashion statement? And like I said earlier on, this is just to show you how fashion evolves and how the message behind things changes. So let's try not to make the corset too restrictive that it goes to extension again only to come back. So yeah, this is just why I love discussing about fashion history. Is just to shed some light and to bring some understanding that everything you see today at some point was already done in some way, shape or form. No one is an actual creator. We are all getting inspired from somewhere, some person, some place to reimagine what we've seen, what we've envisioned, and the rest. So yeah, corset is just another fascinating story that I decided to share with you guys, because it's just crazy that it went from it being a hidden underwear to a fashion statement. So I can't even imagine what hidden underwear it is today that will go crazy or become a fashion statement in the future. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope your Christmas holiday goes smooth. I hope you get to see your loved ones, have a break, and just enjoy the holidays. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, like it if you haven't. You've watched the video up until now, please give it a like if you haven't. hit the notification bell to get notified whenever I make a post. Subscribe, share this video to your friends to keep the conversations going, to let them know the history or the origin of corset, how corset came about. And if you're a fan of fashion history, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe for more fashion content. And yeah guys, I'll see you guys next week. Bye.